Anticlimax explained. Literary terms and devices. Hello and welcome to the discourse. Anticlimax is a fascinating concept in literature, speech, and everyday life. It refers to a situation where an event or experience turns out to be less exciting or significant than anticipated. An anticlimax is often described as a disappointing or ineffective conclusion to a series of events. It can also refer to a sudden shift from a serious subject to something utterly frivolous, trivial, or ludicrous. Let us understand the idea of anticlimax with the help of some examples. The grand reveal. Imagine a detective story building suspense for weeks, with mysterious clues and shadowy figures. The culprit is finally revealed to be the forgetful janitor who accidentally misplaced the evidence. Now consider the movie War of the Worlds. It is a film that follows humans at war with aliens. Steven Spielberg succeeds in creating the tension of the expected apocalypse and abrupt end of humanity at the hands of the aliens. So the audience would expect the ending to be, a war with aliens. But instead, the aliens simply die because they cannot handle Earth's bacteria. That is anticlimactic. The romantic gesture. A character spends weeks planning a grand romantic gesture for their beloved. A skywriting proposal, a flash mob, a serenade. The beloved is too busy on their phone to notice. Remember the movie Sadma, Kamal Hassan and Sridevi. The big announcement. A company CEO dramatically pauses during a press conference, building anticipation for a major announcement. The announcement is that they are changing the company logo to a slightly different shade of blue. Everyday life. You spend hours preparing a gourmet meal for your friends, only to discover you are out of salt at the last minute. The meal is bland. Anticlimax as a literary device. In literature, an anticlimax can serve as a figure of speech where a series of ideas or events are presented in descending order of importance. This can create a humorous or ironic effect. A classic example might be a suspenseful build-up in a story that leads to a mundane or silly conclusion, like a hero facing a formidable villain only to discover that the villain is afraid of cats or pigeons. Remember Red John from The Mentalist? Purpose of anticlimax. An anticlimax is a rhetorical device that functions as an abrupt letdown or tonal shift at the end of a narrative build-up. Anticlimaxes can be used to evoke humor, surprise, or even disappointment, depending on the context. They can also serve to highlight the absurdity of a situation. Anticlimax is an absolutely essential ingredient in mock epic poems. It is the very engine that drives the humor and satire. Mock epics take the elevated style, grand themes, and serious tone typically associated with epic poetry and apply them to trivial or ludicrous subjects. The anticlimactic effect arises from the jarring contrast between the high style and the low subject matter. The reader expects a grand, momentous outcome, but instead receives something insignificant or even comical. This incongruity is the source of much of the humor. For example, in Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock, the epic battle over a lock of hair culminates in a rather underwhelming resolution, creating a significant anticlimax that underscores the poem's satirical intent. The anticlimax is not just a stylistic choice. It is the core mechanism through which mock epics achieve their comedic and critical effect, highlighting the absurdity of applying heroic conventions to everyday situations. The elaborate preparations for the seemingly insignificant act of cutting off a lock of hair are a prime example of anticlimax. The epic machinery of the poem, the invocation of the muse, the detailed descriptions of the characters and their actions is used to describe something ultimately frivolous, creating a humorous contrast. The Battle of Sexes, the mock battle between Belinda and the Baron, replete with epic similes and descriptions of weaponry, culminates in the seemingly trivial act of stealing a lock of hair. The grandiosity of the conflict is undercut by the triviality of the prize, generating a comedic anticlimax. The poem invokes supernatural forces and beings typically associated with grand and serious events. However, these forces are ultimately used to describe and comment on the relatively minor social conflicts and vanities of the upper class. The portrayal of the sylphs and the other supernatural beings with their elaborate hierarchies and interventions is ultimately used to shape the events of the seemingly minor incident of the stolen lock of hair. Pope opens the poem with the grand invocation to Queen Anna, using elevated language that is typically of epic poetry. However, the poem's central conflict revolves around the petty theft of a lock of hair. In Canto 3, Pope says, "Hear thou, great Anna, whom three realms obey, those sometimes counsel take and sometimes tea." Queen Anna represents the upper class society that the poem satirizes. Her mention serves to elevate the trivial conflict over the stolen lock of hair, contrasting the seriousness of her royal status with the frivolity of the character's concerns. In Samuel Butler's Hudibras, the lengthy and detailed descriptions of Hudibras's preparations for battle often culminate in anticlimactic results, highlighting the character's incompetence and the absurdity of his pretensions. The poem's extended metaphors and similes, often drawn from classic epics, are similarly deflated by their application to trivial or farcical situations. Understanding anticlimaxes can enhance a reader's appreciation of storytelling and rhetoric. So this is it for today. We will continue to discuss various literary terms and devices often used in English literature. Please stay connected with the discourse. Thanks and regards.